Welcome to the Trade Show Podcast, the home for conversations with global leaders in the trade show and events business. Our show will bring you face to face with experts who speak about the possibilities and trajectories of this $50 billion industry. I'm your host Shubhanjan Sarkar, founder of Pitchlink, the next generation visitor engagement platform where our mission is to make conversion easy. Welcome to this episode of the Trade Show Podcast. Thank you for listening and your continued feedback. If you have suggestions or you want me to dig in with a specific guest, please write to me at shubhanjan@pitch.link or message me on LinkedIn. Both links available in the show notes. I'm delighted to introduce you our guest today, Anca Platon Trifan, an award-winning global AI speaker, AV production executive and agency owner with over 2 decades of experience delivering live, hybrid, and virtual events worldwide.
It is, I think, a very unique journey. Not everybody will do some of the things that I have done. Like, for example, right after college, when I was seeking opportunities for myself in the AV production world, and I couldn't find any in my country. My country of origin is Romania. I basically packed my bags and got one way ticket to ride to US, and I started a brand new journey on my own without any support, any family, anything, right? Because I really am someone that once I put something in my mind, I will go and get it done.
Anca Platon Trifan is the founder and CEO of Trifan Events Productions, a woman-owned AV production and event technology agency, and the producer and host of events Demystified, the top 5 podcast in event production, event technology, and AI. Her career was built backstage long before the spotlight. Anca came up through live production, calling shows, mixing audio, and leading technical teams under pressure where decisions have real-time consequences. That hands-on foundation gives her rare credibility with both leadership teams and production crews and informs her clear, no-nonsense approach to execution and strategy. Today, Anca speaks globally on AI, event technology and leadership, advising organizations on how to adopt AI in ways that support people, performance, and scale. She's also a competitive bodybuilder, bringing discipline, resilience, and mental focus from training into her work as a business owner and speaker. What sets Anca apart is her ability to translate complex technology into confidence. She carries backstage trust onto the stage, elevates the professionals behind the scenes, and reminds audiences that great events and great businesses are built through care, judgment, and execution. Now, on to this insightful episode with Anca Platon Trifan. Anca, welcome to the Trade Show Podcast. I'm glad that this is the last recording I'm doing this year. So that's wonderful to have you on the show. And as I said in the beginning, I'm quite intimidated with all the stuff that you have done, especially the bodybuilding part. I mean, and we'll talk about that because I think staying committed to health is something we all want to do, but we all somehow not do it. And it takes a different kind of motivation to do what you do. But let's start at the beginning. How did you get into events and where were you when you got into events?
Well, first off, Subhajan, thank you so much for having me. I guess you really wanted to end the Trade Show Podcast on a high note with the last episode of 2025. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored for the invitation. And excited to talk about technology, AI, bodybuilding, fit for events, which is basically what I've packaged my health and fitness journey under for the event industry. And I don't know if it's really intimidating. It is, I think, a very unique journey. Not everybody will do some of the things that I have done. Like, for example, right after college, when I was seeking opportunities for myself in the AV production world, and I couldn't find any in my country. My country of origin is Romania. I basically packed my bags and got one one-way ticket to ride to US, and I started a brand new journey on my own without any support, any family, anything, right? Because I really am someone that once I put something in my mind, I will go and get it done. And it doesn't matter the obstacles, it doesn't matter the challenges, I will figure it out. I'll find a way. And that's where that was. Like I was 21-year old. Most kids at 21, they're still maturing, still trying to figure out what they want to do in life, right? But I had a very clear path in my mind where I wanted to see myself. And it was a long journey. You know, I worked my way up from literally coiling cables to learn what is this industry about. I had no prior AV production experience. I was knocking at the doors in the beginning in LA for anyone to hire me. And my offer was, I will fix your computers because I graduated in computer science. I'm like, this is what I can provide, but this is what I want. It's like a fair trade. You know, I'm not here to beg. I'm here to learn. And I think it's important, especially as women in our industry, to be able to advocate for yourself, to be able to stay the course and be able to be persuasive, but also intentional with the things that you want, the things that you want to accomplish. And I didn't always have it figured out, but I knew this is the next step. And then the next step, I'm going to figure out the next step. And I just took it in milestones, in increments. And that has very much applied to my bodybuilding journey. When I got into it, this was prior to 2020, prior to COVID. I didn't get into fitness because I wanted to become a bodybuilder. That was far removed from my mind. I wanted to get rid of some of the pregnancy weight that I was dealing with right after having my daughter. And I wanted to feel better. I wanted to not feel so tired all the time, to not feel like foggy. My brain was just not clear. And I was just so tired of feeling tired. And I took it upon myself to find the fix. And to me, that was, well, if there's one thing I can control is myself, my own body. And I just started, like, I remember, like, I was looking at some footage with my daughter because she was just one or two at a time, and she was working out with me with little things, that she could lift. And that was as we went into the shutdown in 2020, and we couldn't go to the gym. We couldn't but I was working out at home. I really wanted to take charge of my health, and it felt like it was my responsibility also for my kids to see that their parents are really interested in health, in fitness, in longevity, and all that. And one thing led into to another, and next thing you know, I was making quite a bit of progress. I was definitely sticking to the program and doing all the necessary steps, not just from a fitness point of view and a workout point of view, but also nutrition, right? So all of those things, like when I package my bodybuilding journey for the event industry, I like to draw parallels. I always like to draw parallels to the events, to leadership. It's not about motivation. It's never been about motivation for me. It's about discipline, about building habits that support your intentions. And if your intention is, hey, it's beginning of 2026, I just want to lose 10 pounds, then you need to figure out what are the habits that you need to build and then stack on those habits. And before you know it, that becomes your lifestyle. And it's harder to break a lifestyle than it is to try to every morning find motivation to do the things that you said you would, right? So yeah, AI has been the next progression of my journey. This was a few years back when I was like three years now. Obviously, AI as a traditional AI, we've had machine learning. We've had that already learning our habits, shopping habits. Amazon has done a really good job implementing a lot of algorithms to figure out what we want to spend our money on and then market the heck out of it, right? But AI as the Gen AI, right? That is where we started like perking our ears when OpenAI came on the market. And that's where I was too. So did I. And I was like, wait a second, this is really going to change so much of our industry. I mean, coming from the dial-up computer internet era up to this point, right? There's always been changes. There's always been moments where it felt like there's a huge disruptor happening. But I think AI is so bigger and so much more than just that. It's not just disrupting the way we do things and the way it's affecting our markets and our jobs and even our economy, obviously, but even our mindsets, the way we think, it's definitely changing in ways that we will see if it's for the better or worse, sure, in years' time. But there is no argument that it's been shaking our world. So that's why I was super, super interested. And then from there, taking it into events, like, because this is where I operate, this is where I spend my time, this is where my livelihood is. I always wanted to figure out how can we take those AI tools that are literally coming out almost like mushrooms after the rain, and take it from an AI tool to a strategy, right? Because a lot of people, they just want to implement AI, but then they don't know where to start. And they would think, oh, I need more tools. I need to do more with this, more. No, I think more than anything, what we need is a strategy. The world is already operating, especially our world, on tight margins, on late decisions, on rising costs, on attendees who really crave connection in the world of AI more than anything. So being able to see where can we support our events from not just a day-to-day execution, but as a larger strategy, I think that's where it's important to look at AI not just as a strategic partner, but also how is it going to become a collaborator in this new journey that we're all into, right?
Right. Let's wind back a bit. We will come to this, and uh, let's touch upon your getting into AV, and then your entire transition into events. And you have worked across many kinds. I mean, you mentioned that you started with the radio shows, so which is why audiovisuals were the first touch.
Yeah.
How did that, the first, I don't know how many years you are doing only sound and AV. I believe you still do that.
Yeah. So the company that I started 15 plus years ago, Trifan Event Production, is still very much operating in the AV production world. And we have quite a few legacy clients that we work with, new clients. My first event of 2026 is going to be January 2nd. So we're definitely heavily doing production for events. Even though I'm not so, I guess, I'm not marketing that side of the business as much anymore because it's already running well and
Right.
it already has the reputation that it has. And I have a great team that I work with. I think a lot of the marketing that I've started doing for my brand, for Anca Platon Trifan as the speaker, as the AI expert, has been more of an intentional push in the last few years, just because, again, I moved from production heavy behind the scenes persona into front of scenes, the AI expert, the speaker on stage, right? And to be able to guide that transition, you have to have not just good reputation, word of mouth, but you also have to show for it, right? Like you have to have something tangible to show. So that's why a lot of the marketing that you would see technically now on LinkedIn is promoting that side of the
Right.
business. But going back to your question, so I think it was high school when I first, I just got a job over the summer to be a radio host. This was back in Romania. And then I kept that over throughout high school and then through college. And what was interesting is I loved being the host. Like the reason why I have a podcast right now, Events Demystified podcast, podcast, which is one of the top event technology and AI podcasts in our industry, is because it's kind of like reminiscence of those days, of my radio
Right.
days. And I remember like one day, side note, I walked into the living room and I was telling my husband, I'm like, and this was like 7 years ago, I'm like, how come I don't have a podcast? I'm like, I loved my time in the radio. Like, I need to start a podcast. So basically, that's what I did, and we've been going strong. I mean, this year, I think we had a growth of like 9,000, whatever, like Spotify Wrapped. When it gives you those numbers, I'm like, I don't understand how this makes any sense, but it was a huge growth, which goes to say that the show has been really loyal to the audience, to the topics that we cover, which was very relevant for the event industry, anything that has to do with technology, AI, and production, as well as wellness and fit for events. This has been really kind of my mission to bring this concept to the forefront, that it's not just about the events that we produce and the audiences that we take care of. It's also about this one machine, this one person that you are, that is behind those amazing experiences. How well do you take care of that? Like, if that machine is rugged and breaks down, like, there's a lot of issues that can come from that. So anyway, it's been a mission on that end. But then going back to radio, the one thing that actually stuck with me during those times was I fell in love with this small mixing board. I think it was like a Mac A1402, and sound engineering became sort of like my first love. And that was one thing that I wanted to learn more about. And I couldn't, like, there was no opportunity whatsoever in Romania. And actually I have a few AV production focused talks. And one is also, very much advocating for more women in AV lead roles. But one of the stories that I say is like how, I went to this business owner that had a AV production house in my hometown. And I asked if I could learn, like if I literally could come and learn hands-on, just shadowing the other guys. And I got that, replies like, what is wrong with you? Like, go and get married, like have kids. Like, why would you want to learn this? This is for guys only, it was this complete like rejection of how dare you want to learn something that it's so manual and hard. And this is where only a guy would be able to thrive. And you don't tell me no, because then that's when I will make it for sure a point to prove you wrong. So
Right.
I got onto this path. I'm like, well, if this is a no here, it doesn't need to be a no everywhere. So I always had US on my heart. Like, since I was 12 years old, I remember having this postcard of the Statue of Liberty. To me, that represented so much, freedom, autonomy, the ability to drive after something that you're passionate about and be able to achieve it. And without a bunch of cultural norms and constraints. So that's what I did. Got on a plane, got to US, like I said, moved on the West Coast and just started my way up from there. And I was lucky enough to have my door open into AV production by this mentor of mine in Ingram. To this day, we are best friends, and it's been 20 something years now. But he was the first person that gave me a chance, and he has a production company down in LA. And in the beginning, like I said, he was like, "Well, we struggle with our computers." This was like way back then when they still had those big, bulky computers. Running mostly accounting and inventory and some CRM on it, right? And And I got in, and then from there, soon enough, he realized that I was very determined to learn everything about audio and video, lighting, all of it. So that's what I did, and we did a lot of high-profile shows. He was working mainly for some a list celebrities, fashion designers. Like we had shows for Snoop Dogg and Lil Jon and Fergie and Christina Aguilera, and like we would do a show for Christian Didier, who's behind the Ed Hardy line and a bunch of other fashion lines, and we would do those weekly fashion shows at the Grove down in LA, where we'd take over the Grove, set up a stage and a runway, and there was like a fashion show every Friday. And that meant like we literally set up the truss, the staging, the lighting, the sound, the projection, all of it was happening like from Thursday night up until Friday night. We had like about that 24-hour period to set up everything, have this runway, amazing fashion show on Friday night, and then take it all down and do it all over again the next week and the next week and the next week. So all of that like really teaches you the in and outs of production. And then we had a series of concerts that we would do in LA, and you learn, but you also go through the grind. Like it was hard, heavy work, 18-hour days, some days. You would turn around, at 2 a.m. in the morning, and the next morning you had to be back in the shop at 8 a.m. to QC everything that was unloaded and loaded back into the truck for the next show. We are operating like nonstop on a schedule. And I remember like doing that for, I don't know, about 7 years. And eventually burning out. Like I had no work-life balance. Not only was I doing that like 5 days, 6 days a week, many days we were working on weekends as well. But then I was also mixing sound on Sundays, morning and evening for this mega church. And because that's where I would get my sound mixing, practice. And, so yeah, it was nonstop, like 7 days a week, nonstop, start again. So eventually that has, an impact on you, on your, physical capacity, on your mental capacity, emotional, all of that. And I remember breaking down one day we were doing a major trade show for the fashion show industry down in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Convention Center. And it would have been great. Like, I mean, we were already operating like this well-oiled machine, but the union that we were working with and we had to use, they were running all of our DMX lines for lighting for the truss. That was basically every booth was made out of truss, right? And then every booth had its own lighting scheme, but everything had to be pre-programmed. But in order to pre-program that, you have to make sure that you run the cabling. This was before wireless DMX. Right. And before you could do this, just by addressing a fixture to respond to the control. And the union labor that we were working with in the convention center, they started in one spot, and then they did whatever half day worth of work, and then they went out to lunch, and then when they came back they forgot which direction they're going, and they started running cabling the opposite way. So by the time we were handed, okay, we ran all the cables, we were like left with this mess on our hands of nothing worked. And this is already like 8 p.m. at night. And we stayed the whole night rewiring the truss. I was in charge of programming the lights for each one of those booths and having to rewrite to figure out, okay, where did it stop? Where did it turn around? How did they mess this up so badly? And that was like a 36, block of where barely you would eat a snack and work and drink something and work and go to the restroom and work. And I crashed. Like physically, I was not able to get up from the floor because I was so exhausted. And that was kind of like my, come to Jesus moment. I'm like, I'm going to break myself if I don't figure how to find a balance in this industry. And so obviously we had some conversations, and about the same time I also was in the process of wanting to start a family, and I'm like, there's no way I can start a family if this is my lifestyle. There's none of this will work, like no matter how I try to spin it, right? So that was kind of like my way into this other part of the event industry, which is corporate events. I figure, okay, well, that's not as exciting as live events and live production and all this, amazing celebrity shows that I'm doing. However, it's a little bit more sustainable. So I moved out of LA, moved to Portland, Oregon. There's a lot of fundraising and a lot of NGOs that are in Oregon. And I figured, okay, well, I'll just park myself inside a venue and go in and go out at the same time and do those events that are very predictable. But I think it was also a really good learning experience. Your corporate clients are maybe not as I would say creative from a production point of view, but they are more reliable, and they're also in so many ways they can also be demanding, right? So you have to then excel in other ways. And that was another learning experience for me to do that well in that world. And we had presidents and vice presidents come through some of those events and just be able to deliver the same level of excellence, only in a different setting. Yeah. So that was that. And after doing that for another 7 or 8 years, I think midway through that, I started my own company, and I figured, well, I'm already doing all of this for all these people. How come I'm not doing this for myself? And then, yeah, one thing led to another. The production company was on paper was, started. I think it was more like 14 years, where it started on paper, but it was already operating from like a business standpoint without necessarily the legalese behind it for quite a few more years. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. But out of all of this, I think what I want to highlight is the fact that one thing is that I feel like I pride myself into is, one, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well. Two, I'm not going to wait for someone to pull a chair so I can have a seat at the table. I will pull my own chair if I have to. And three, bring in new faces, new blood, less advantageous type of crowds. Like, for example, from a labor point of view, the AV industry is already known to have a very male dominant labor market, right? But then bringing in girls and mentoring them so they can be in that environment and then get opportunities. That was also a part of my my mission, really. It's like I already knew what it's like to be on the outside and being rejected from doing certain jobs and certain roles in the industry because of the fact that I'm a female and I'm small and I'm short, and like, how could this person possibly be able to sustain the demands of this industry? Well, I already knew that I could because I've already done it. But at face value, people see what they see, right? Until you prove yourself. And there's a lot of proving, a lot of reproving and reproving. You're just as good as your last event, right? But from a technical point of view, you really are just as good as your last event. You can mess up. There's no mercy if you do. And sometimes there's a lot of biases built into that. Like a guy would mess up and they'll be like, yeah, he's having a hard day. If you mess up, you're done. You're not going to come back again, So there's definitely a different measuring stick that a lot of women deal with in our industry. And I started becoming vocal about it and speaking against it and trying to level the field in a way. What are some fair practices for our industry. And that was the mission on my podcast, through my speaking. That kind of drew me, I guess, out from the behind the scenes more into forefront to be on stages and speak to it. And there's just, I guess, bring awareness to the fact that this is the reality and we can do better as an industry.
Before I talk a bit about your podcast, and then of course I would love to move into the AI space. Uh, if you have to step back and think of the changes that you have seen in trade shows, either the way they're made or the way the core purpose of trade shows are addressed, which is essentially to provide in person engagement, which can lead to business. I mean, let's make no mistake. Nobody's. I mean, otherwise people will go to conferences if it is the keynote they're after.
Yeah.
They don't need a trade show. They don't need a floor, right?
Yeah.
So, what difference do you see, and where are they in what it was and what it is now?
I can speak, I think, more to the technology and production side of it, because that's where I spent a lot of my years before, right? Back in those
Yeah.
days, we were not brought in
Yeah.
to generate any type of thought leadership or strategy behind how this trade show was going to function, or what were the KPIs, what was the ROI, like what's the purpose of putting on a trade show to begin with, right? We were brought in by different brands to here's what we have in mind. How can you make this happen? And that's what we did. I think, and back in the days, I was also going to a lot of major shows that in that production industry, like NAM, LDI, CS, all of those large fashion shows, because it spoke to my interest, to what I wanted more to be knowledgeable of. And like it felt like from that point of view that where we were back then, right? What's changed the most is the technology that we're using now to track attendance, to track interest, to track leads, to generate like a strategy that will serve better than just kind of throwing things at the wall and then seeing what sticks. And I think from that point of view, we have evolved. From a connection point of view, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I remember making way better connections back in those days and having more space to meet people, to shake hands, to have conversations than what we do now in this very much like overflowing agendas of things that are constantly happening. Not that it's not a good thing to have content. It's not that it's not a good thing to have logic to why we gather, right? But if we do it without being aware of where the mental capacity of somebody that goes like to a 3 day trade show, like take IMAX, one of the largest trade shows in our industry, right? I mean, when you get into IMAX, you already know that you're going to be overstimulated, overwhelmed, overtired, and you kind of go like prepared for it, knowing that it's gonna be a lot. But then at the same time, like, is it really necessary to pressure ourselves to the point of fatigue that by day 3, it doesn't matter what I'm learning, it doesn't matter who I'm meeting, I'm already so over it that I don't have any more capacity left. Like I don't have capacity. And then the strategy with getting back to following up, right? Like it was so funny because like, IMAX is beginning of October and December, mid of December, and we're having this conversation. I was still getting follow-up emails. I'm like, I don't even remember what we talked about. If you're following up with me like 2-3 months later, like we have to do better. Like now we have the tools to do better. And that's where I think we have no more excuses. That's where we should be in the mindset that back in the days, I mean, you were writing probably, names down and taking business cards and, hoping that you don't lose them so you can get back to and trying to write on it like what they were interested in so you can follow up with them on that particular topic. It was very manual, a lot of manual work, right? You had no mapping of your booth to know when somebody walked in, what was the first thing they were attracted to? When somebody walked in, what was one thing that distracted them from, staying? If they walked in, who did they shake a hand with? If they walked in, who welcomed them and asked them what they're looking for, right? Like none of that data was available, but now we have it. There's a lot of event tech out there that their main focus is to give you a really good reading, a really good mapping of what is happening in your booth, around your booth, on the trade show floor, so that you can take some intentional action with that. And yet here we are. Some, still send follow-up emails 3 months later and you're wondering, or even worse, like they just get the whole list of people that are coming to that trade show and then they mass email everyone. And I've gotten emails from people I've never met. I know for sure we've never met because I'm very intentional these days with the people that I go and interact with, the brands that I seek out and want to have conversation with. So if you're coming from the left field and you're telling me that we met at your booth, I will know.
It's time for a short break. Stay with us. After the break,
I don't think there's enough knowledge given. Like I see a lot of the younger generation being put in this position. Okay, you're going to go to a trade show and you're going to be a booth staff because it kind of feels like the entry level to events, to a trade show, right? Like you don't require a lot of skills to just sit there and say hi. Well, apparently it does require some social skills.
you are listening to a Bizcast audio original. Podcasting is one of the fastest growing content marketing avenues today. We can help you exploit this largely untapped marketing opportunity. We can craft your audio strategy and leverage the wide reach and easy streaming capability that smartphone penetration provides. It is powerful and personal. Talk to us to find out how podcasting can help you build your brand and reach out to target audiences. Welcome back. I'm Shubhanjan Sarkar, your host for the Trade Show podcast and founder of PitchLink, the visitor engagement platform. Let's dive right back into the episode.
What's your experience? What's been your experience? I mean, you've been in the industry for quite a bit as well. I'm sure you went through some of those early day trade shows. What's been different for you?
I'll tell you about something I did last year. I went to like 7 trade shows in Canada and US across multiple cities, and I actually spoke to 200 attendees. Okay, and my question was, which conversation stood out? And 99% said none.
Conversations in the booth or conversation at the trade show? In the booth. Got it.
In the booth.
Yeah.
So I was basically interested in how the exhibitor attendee engagement is going. I was not so much interested in the content because I know that will happen. And so if you have interest, you'll go to some sessions, you will not go to some sessions and so on and so forth.
That is painful to hear.
Isn't it? And I said that what was the most exciting thing that happened? Mm-hmm. And typically it was, I bumped into John who I had met 3 years back.
Right.
So these are like
connection and relationships, right?
Yeah. And what sort of jumped out to me is that when I'm talking to exhibitors, I'm hearing very similar things. That people are coming, they're not interested, but we are talking. And I look at the booth. I don't know what you see, but I see people, a booth, there are like 7 people and 3 of them are on their phone.
I mean, even if it's 1 or 2 person in the booth, like if both of you are hands, like eyes down in a device, I don't feel wanting to interrupt, to be honest.
Exactly, right? I mean, you don't even know that do they really want to talk, or maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Maybe they're here in a punishment posting, and they will sort of. So what I hear constantly, and also when I compare notes, is that I think our ability to have conversations
Hmm.
with some amount of curiosity. Anka, I don't know, I didn't know you, right? But I have to have some curiosity to listen to what you have done,
Right.
not just bombard you with questions, because that's what I'm supposed to do as the podcast host. If I don't ask you any question and you speak all through, I'm happy.
Even though I'll tell you because I'm like 200 episodes in with my podcast. Sometimes pulling
Right.
out of a guest, it's gonna be so painful.
Right.
Luckily, you
Right.
don't have that problem
Absolutely.
with me. I can just keep on going. I just need to stop knowing. Come on, we have a timeline, and we also were gonna talk about some things. So, like, keep
Yeah.
it short.
Yeah. But by the way, I must tell you this, that once your book is out, you have to come to my other show, which is Bits About Books. We have done 100 episodes, not
Ooh,
200, but we have done 100
absolutely,
episodes.
absolutely. Hey, consider myself invited.
Yeah, okay, good. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the core, I mean, I'm telling you from my
Yeah,
standpoint that I think the core of a in-person event is to have conversations and engagement, and actually follow up on those conversations immediately.
yeah,
And what you just said is like eye opening, right? 3 months after an event, somebody's mailing you saying, "You met me in my booth." I mean, what were you doing?
yeah,
Where were you? Which cave did you get into?
yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. Yeah,
And we all talk about ROI, we are talking of KPI, we are
yeah,
talking of, eyeball movement and heat map. And why are we doing all this when we can't just do a very simple thing, that is have a proper conversation
yeah.
and then follow up on that?
What do you think is the reason why? I feel like there should be a training 101 on how to be a good booth
I agree.
operator or exhibitor. I don't
Yeah.
think there's a lot of training, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think there's enough like knowledge given. Like, I see a lot of the younger generation being put in this position. Okay, you're going to go to a trade show and you're going to be a booth staff, because it kind of
Yeah.
feels like the entry level to events, to a trade show,
Yeah.
right? Like, you don't require a lot of skills to
Mhm.
just sit there and say hi. Well, apparently it does require some
Yeah.
social skills to be able
Yeah.
to be engaged while you're in that booth, be present, and then be able to be knowledgeable enough to answer questions. Like, if somebody comes to you and wants to learn more, you have to know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I've had many, many of those conversations where every time I would want to get a little bit into the technical, I'd be like, okay, I gotta find this other person, because
Yeah.
you kind of reach the limit of
Yeah.
their knowledge, of their expertise. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the main reasons why this strategy of we're gonna dump a bunch of thousands of dollars in this booth, and then we're just gonna bring almost like this person from the street to attend, to like host our booth, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna hope for the best. That's the
Yeah.
problem with the strategy.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you something else. This is literally what happens in B2B sales in the enterprise. You are asking a rookie to cold call a CEO and convince him to talk to your AE, because you're not empowered, you don't have any knowledge to talk to him beyond that,
Yeah,
and you're expecting a CEO to pick up a phone. So somebody who doesn't know anything, just joined the company, will call Anka and say that you should talk to my AE because we want to sell you something.
yeah,
And that same mindset basically works here.
yeah,
The other thing that I found is that you are not even knowledgeable or interested in the other person. For instance, you should be able to tell him, you know what? You want to buy this AV equipment? We have this. It's not so good. It's not for you. It was for starters. You should go to my competitor who is in that booth, and this is how you reach that place. If you are not honest enough to say that,
yeah,
and this guy, I can tell you, I have had instances where one has told similar things, and this guy has sent 20 different customers over the years saying that this guy is trustworthy because he sent me saying that his equipment is not good enough for me and sent me to the right guy, and I actually made a purchase.
Yeah.
We don't have that honesty, that curiosity in the other person's need, so the interest in the
Yeah.
prospect is very low. That's
Yeah.
also, so you're just like you respect your own product so low that you put somebody less knowledgeable in the booth. The same that same thing is reciprocated to the prospect with less respect. So you're not really
Yeah.
listening, you're trying to take notes, you're waiting to ask the next qualifying question,
Yeah.
right?
Going back to that, I'll share something that was just a recent experience I had the other day. Actually, I went to my dentist, do my regular cleaning, and the hygienist. I love hygienists because we can have this like very long conversation, about an hour long, while she's doing the job. But what was really interesting to me is we were talking about business, we're talking about AI, we're talking about her having this friend that runs a multitude of businesses, but everything is falling apart because he doesn't have the right people in key roles to take care of the business. And one thing that surfaced out of all of that was her frustration with the fact that the people that he's hired have no customer service and problem solving skills, and they're in a sales position. So like, for example, they're basically in this Airbnb type of selling, where he has a lot of spaces, offices, and he leases. And somebody would come with a need, like, I need to lease a space for this long. And the person picking up the phone would be like, well, it's not available. And they stop there. And she'll be so frustrated because she overhears those conversations like, how come you're not offering them another office that's just across the street just to solve this problem, this person's problem, or offer them the next best thing, even if what they want right now is not available. Like that
Right.
goes to what you were saying, right? Like if your people, the people that you bring to support in your efforts to bring leads in, don't even have the problem solving skill to be able to say, I see what you're looking for is not something offer that we might have right now, but guess what? It's either on the road, like roadmap, or I know someone that can do that, and you're still offering them something, a solution, a helpful
Yeah.
tip. Because like you said, going back to what you said, that has more weight than you being able to say yes or no, or being able to give them what they were looking for in the first place. Because somebody will remember they were helpful. Somebody will remember they sent me actually to the right place, and I don't have to scramble and go about 20 other exhibitors to look for whatever I came in for. That is, I think, a skill set. But I don't know if it's so much a skill set as much as a innate gift to be able to say, you know what? I don't have the solution for you, but I will work on it. I will figure it out. I will find something to make it work. And that type of industrious type of mindset, that's hard to find. It's hard to find in the people that we work with. I mean, in my business, in my production business, I try to hire a lot of like new blood, trying to get them into the industry, to teach them, to mentor them. And I've had, young individuals quit on me on the day of the event because by noon they figure that's too hard of a job. And I'm like, what is so hard? Like, I don't understand, right? Like, it has to be one, the type of person that will figure out, I will have the capacity to go beyond just what they're being told, to go and find the right lead, to find solution to, but also I think it's a bit of a something that you, like a cultural thing. Like, I grew up with working hard for what I want. That was what I was raised at. That was kind of like, I didn't have another option. I don't know if if a lot of people have the same mindset. Too many give up too easily. And I think that's a problem, right? Like, and that goes in not just in career paths, but hobbies, fitness, health. Make it easy. Where's the shortcut? I want to have it easy, right? And I don't think easy gets you far. I don't think easy gets you to the place where you want to get, if that's your mindset. And I don't know if it's a mindset shift or it's just a innate desire to be curious, to learn, to help, or it's something that can be nurtured. So you tell me, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of things. I think that when you say training, it's not really putting them through a classroom. It's
Right,
really about setting context.
right.
It is getting them, giving them the understanding, the deep insight
Yeah,
that this is why the universe works this way, right? So I think when people don't have context, they can then add their own lens and say, this is not necessary. I don't need to do
yeah.
that
It's not as
because
important.
that's not what I do, right? So I think it's the responsibility. A lot of what we say, look, I don't think it is about hard work. I mean, obviously, the world that you come from, and even we, I mean, you are still younger, so it was a different world. So I don't expect
Yeah,
a kid who is born Gen Z to behave the same way. That's
yeah,
fine because they have their own lens,
yep,
so to say, which may not match my lens, which is fine. But the fundamentals, what we used to call values, right? The fundamentals have not changed.
yeah,
Talking the truth is a good thing. Eating healthy is a good thing.
yeah,
Though, I mean, breathing is a good thing.
yeah,
I mean, those things have not changed. So, if we are not setting those examples, like you say, that your child, when she was 1 year old, she was seeing you work out and she was
yeah,
doing her own things. And
yeah,
I that reminds me of my son. He used to see my father exercising,
yeah,
and he used to exercise with him.
yeah,
It is really what they see and what they grow up with. And when that is not sort of great, for some reason the context is lost, I think the leadership that is bringing them into the work has to do that. And you'll still have experiences like yours where they'll say, this is too hard, I quit.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, so it is complicated because this is a change which is not linear at all.
Yeah.
It is geometric.
But I will say though, going back to what we said initially, like even though there's not necessarily a curriculum that is out there, I think it would make for a great one if we were to hypothesize like what would be useful. It's not just what you need to know about a specific brand in order to be valuable to whomever walks in,
Yeah,
but it's the social skills, the emotional implication of being able to psychology behind like
yeah,
people getting together, people having conversation. I think that's kind of lost on us. Like we've,
yeah,
I don't blame the younger generation because many of them were raised in those silos over COVID, and I see my
yeah,
son, like he can have a little bit of anxiety around people. Like he struggles
yeah,
to in one-on-one, he does great. But put him in a crowded place, like it can be overwhelming, right? So I
yeah,
think even setting the guardrail and sort of like the boundaries of where you thrive and where you can grow from, and being able to set kind of like the map, like being able to say, okay, when you come in and you do this one role, what's needed more than anything is presence, engagement. Be there because you want to be there, not because you're forced. Like ask someone like a curious question and be interested to hear what they have to say. And I think that, like you said, that humanity behind the interaction, behind the pipeline is really what matters so much nowadays, especially in this world of AI where, if you go on social, you go on LinkedIn, there's a lot of content that's being generated, not just in words, but video, reels, all of
yeah,
that stuff that you no longer can tell how much of it is real, how much is not, right? So in the
absolutely.
context of that, how are we still engaging as humans that feels relevant and it feels like it's not enforced, and it goes back to those values that you mentioned, but it also goes back to being able to show how does that look like in real life, because a lot of especially the younger generation grew up with not knowing what that looks like, with not
I agree.
having the baseline, with not having the manual. And I remember when I moved to US as a 20 something year old, I was terrified to speak to people because I was so aware of my accent, and I could hear my accent before I could even like mutter one word. And I would feel so terrified to just feel embarrassed of not being able to pronounce things properly. And even to this day, like sometimes I mispronounce things. Like, I don't care at this point. I'm like, hey, you get this dual speaking person in front of you, and it might say a word that sounds more Romanian than English, but I'm so over it because I'm already so planted in my identity in not caring that somebody might, I don't know, like chuckle because I said this word this way versus that way. But back in the days, I was very, very much terrified of the
Yeah.
reality of, presenting myself as someone that struggles in her ability
Right.
to communicate.
Of course. And to your point, I think a training of some format which will orient everybody going to a booth to how they're expected to make the most of it for themselves and for the company and for everybody else, I think is extremely critical. I think
Yeah.
that's something which should be on the agenda. I'm going to look around and see if somebody's already doing that. If not, I think it's a good thing to think about.
I just gave you a great idea for 2026. If anything, like a series of episodes where you literally take
Yes.
each as a, module one. This is how you talk to someone new. Module two.
Yeah.
This is how you don't stay on your phone. Our food, right?
Exactly.
I think,
Exactly.
joking
Yeah.
aside, the future of trade shows, it's not so much about technology, because we did talk about, how technology has changed tremendously over the years since we both started in events back in the days. I think it's more about better integration of technology with human behavior. And I've had a guest on my podcast, Victoria Mattei. She's all about in human psychology and the whole human behavior for event. Would be a great someone to interview to get behind the behavior part, to get behind the values and the psychology of human behavior, right? And I think AI will absolutely shape the next generation of event engagement, but only if, I guess, the industry gets disciplined about why and how it is being used, right? It's not just about throwing a bunch of technology and hoping for the best. And a lot of, unfortunately, brands going to those trade shows, putting a lot of money into those trade shows, they hope that technology will solve all their problems when, like we just had this conversation, very unscripted, is how the problem sometimes has nothing to do with your technology or your AI expertise. It's more about the humanity behind your strategy, the people that you bring on to support your goals.
Yeah.
And I think that's where fewer dashboards will and more decisions about who is the right person to send to this one versus who is the right person to be forefront with the customer versus behind the scenes doing the other things, right? And less interruption, I think, and
Yeah.
being able to have more permission based engagement where we're really, really being present. That's where I think is where trade shows will change relevant, events will stay relevant, and hopefully that will lead to real pipeline, to
Yeah.
real leads that you can take away after you put not just the time and the effort, but also the money behind it.
Absolutely. I think this is a great segue to wrap up our conversation with this last bit, where I want to refer to the last post you made about AI in events versus AI in enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about it. Please unpack what you found.
Yeah, so I've actually just today, this morning, I posted this article on my LinkedIn. page. And if you're curious about it, you can go to Anca Platon Trifan. Find me. I'm the only Anca Platon Trifan you're going to find on LinkedIn, so it shouldn't be too hard. And I wanted to make a bit of a parallel between the latest event industry report on AI and then McKinsey's State of AI for 2025. I love McKinsey's State of AI reports. They started like a few years back, and then I've been following them every year because they give a global picture of where we are, where enterprises are with AI, and then the event industry report is more of a very micro picture into our industry. And every report speaks, I guess, in the language of day-to-day execution, whereas the other one speaks more about the industry report speaks more onto the day-to-day versus the McKinsey speaks on the large economic overview, the pressures, the organizational reinventions that a lot of organizations have to go to, and then how AI is being used as a competitive weapon. So it's kind of like two different attitudes, right? This big world and then two different attitudes. And what it really emerged out of this was that our industry has been leading with technology and innovation, and we're not lacking from that. What we're lacking from, I guess, is alignment with the pace of innovation that is happening everywhere else. And we still see, and I have those conversations with event organizers all the time, we still see event teams that are wrestling with cost inflation and limited ROI measurement and overpacked agendas and late registrants and sponsor hesitation, right? And then this very human desire to connect that we talked about. Whereas the broader business landscape is more interested in AI ethics, AI governance, workforce transformation. How is that impacting our labor? Agentic systems that are replacing entire workflows. And then there is the compliance, the risk, the safety that comes with implementing AI at that level, as well as the competitive pressure that exists across every function, no matter where your business is. So if you're looking at where events are using AI, they're looking at saving time, whereas the enterprise use of AI is more to change the operational model, right? And I think that's where we need to come to. Like, as an industry, we have to go beyond just, what tool can I use to solve this one problem? It's more going back to that strategic, economical, organizational lens and look of how can we use AI to be our competitive advantage and our transformation engine for our events, for our trade shows as we move into 2026 in a intentional manner. So it's a very interesting report. I covered a little bit about what AI adoption looks like, where those two reports align, where they don't, what's our industry view on AI, versus what's the McKinsey's view on AI, business ROI, what each report extracts as far as the event industry, where is some of our metrics are with AI, friction points, value drivers, whereas also the experience design versus enterprise operational models that are being discussed. It's a great report that I think if you're interested in the state of the AI, not just for our event industry, but also globally, it really will give you an insight, because it just feels like we are kind of a few steps behind than where the enterprise AI curve is. And it's important to learn from other industries. I was having this conversation one-on-one with someone that she's going through a transition, and she was wanting to meet with me to find out how can she learn more about AI, where can she learn about AI, what's relevant, what's not, the type of conversations that I normally have just by being someone that has set herself as a thought leader in the space. And I was telling her how important it is to look outside of our industry, not just at our industry use of AI, but look outside, because there's so many models that are working well, and there's so much inspiration to be drawn from outside than our industry is operating in. Because sometimes we can be in our own silos and
Yeah.
we do what everybody else does. And that's what this echo chamber just gets reinforced again and again. And that's something that I kind of like, I cringe against. I go on to an event and I hear the same things repeated in this echo chamber, even about AI. And I cringe and I'm like, no, 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 there's more to it than that. So I tend to be the speaker that can speak all the way up here and bring those new concepts and talk about new things. And sometimes my audience, it is here, right? And I need to bring them up to speed, because to me, to my mind, it's like there's so much more than what we're still talking about here at this level, you know? But again, it's because I do put myself in the position to get tidbits of insights and information from other industries, not just ours, because AI is not just for efficiency. And I think for the longest time, we're just trying that, right? AI is not just for task. It's for workflows. It's for operation models that we can work with moving into 2026. And I think we right now are in this place where we're not looking at AI just as an innovation, but as a leadership movement. How are you going to lead the change for your team? And how are you going to lead the change in your industry that we are now? So yeah, it's an interesting report. It just barely scratched the surface, but if you're more interested, you can go on LinkedIn, and then I have a link to the full report, which is like, I don't know, like 50 something pages, the McKinsey one. Right. So get a cup of coffee and study if you're really interested in getting more insight.
Absolutely. No, I think I have the McKinsey thing. I did flip through it, but I have not read it in full. I will. I just wanted to point out before we wrap up that it is also an opportunity for the trade shows and events industry to lead. And what I mean by that is we are intentionally an in-person engaging industry. AI is supposed to move us away from persons and individuals in many ways. Whether you talk of agentic AI, it's basically replacing humans to do things for efficiency, for better output, whatever. I mean, we can go into that debate separately and figure out what works, what doesn't, and so on. But I think there is this huge opportunity to actually find really aligned AI and technology related to AI and humans, where it really works in lockstep.
Yeah.
Unlike most of the other enterprises or industries. I think there is a huge opportunity there, which one should be thinking of very actively, because I mean, what is being built for, so to say, more generic use case. Okay, everybody does, Excel. So can we build an agent which can replace the Excel? I mean, it's very, very generalized, or not somewhere human to human connection is the core of the business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And, but again, like we said in the beginning, it goes back to curiosity. It goes back to wanting to learn, wanting to know what's happening. I think moving into 2026, moving into the future, moving into 2030, right? The people that will stay curious, the people that will stay in tune with what is happening in the world and outside of our immediate world, those are the ones that will stay relevant. Because you're right. Like, I sometimes worry about my kids and their future in this new world that AI is completely disrupting, and thinking about what are some of the skills that they need to have 20 years from now so they are relevant. I can't answer that question, but you're right. The human version of who you are, the humanity behind who you are, your character, your mindset, those are important things. Your creativity. I was looking at a report, another one that I was researching for one of my talks that I just gave at Expo, and they're talking about the human factor, which brings in not just the thought leadership creativity, but also storytelling into the mix, and how much that's been thriving in this world of AI. And those are things that we need to pay attention to, right? Because if you think you're doing something relevant and important right now, and that might be like you're a data cruncher, guess what? Your job is not so relevant in just like a year's time, if not less, because there's an AI tool that can do that much better, much faster, and with way more insights and capacity.
PitchLink makes buying easy by enabling high quality engagement between buyers and sellers. Through its presentation and discussion modules, sellers create customized sales narratives using sales collaterals and personal videos, and reach out to prospects through a non-intrusive, buyer-qualified engagement process. PitchLink requires no installation or download, contains and manages the entire repository of sales collaterals and buyer-seller conversations. Talk to us to know more about how you can engage with customers without interruption. Connect with us on LinkedIn or visit tradeshowengage.com. That is tradeshowengage.com.
Can I wrap up with just a few thoughts on the Fit for Events framework that we alluded to a little bit in the beginning, because it's the end of the year, and the end of the year is when I think a lot of people they take a moment, or if you don't, maybe you should take a moment to reflect on the past years that's happened, and on the things that you've done, the things that you want to keep doing, and the things that you don't want to do anymore, right? I hope as you move into the new year, one thing that you would want to pay more attention to is your health, is your longevity, your fit span, your health span, beyond just looking good, beyond just feeling good. It's like your investment into your future self. I think when we think about our health, we always think from a financial point of view, like, what's my IRA doing? Where's my money and retirement funds going, right? But if you have all of that and your body, your health collapses, none of it really matters at the end of the day, right? So that's why taking it in strides, doing one thing to support your health. That might be like eating better, being more aware of the things that you consume when you're at home or when you're on a trade show floor. We all know how challenging that can be, right? Like, I pack a lot of things with me. Like, one of my go-to is like this little protein shake that if I didn't have time to eat something in the morning or have a breakfast, or even my lunch, was, questionable, I would have my protein in, and I know it will carry me through until the next opportunity where I can get something better. Or movement. Let's just say you don't have, 2 hours in a day, even though that goes back to priorities, right? I have 2 hours in a day because I wake up at 4 a.m. I wouldn't have 2 hours in a day if I didn't wake up so early and going so late. But moving a little bit around the office, going out and taking a phone call or doing one of your calls while you're on a 20-minute walk. Those are little things that you can change that will impact the future of your health and the future of your fitness in really incredible ways, because they stack up, right? And to me, that's where we need to really look into and make an investment into ourselves, not just our businesses, not just our events, not just everyone else, but really, how will you do something different for yourself in 2026. So I hope you take it as a motivation to just do one thing that you can keep up as this new year starts, because everybody's going to the gym the first 2-3 weeks in January. And guess what? By the end of February, it's crickets again.
Yeah, true. It's hard. Everybody knows it's hard to make a commitment, and to yourself, that's the one you can sort of bounce off without anybody telling you anything. But as you said, it's about assigning priority to your future self.
I know. And to me, the way that looks like practically is I set a date with myself in the calendar, is a block. If I had a meeting with Subhanjan and we said that we'd meet at 10 a.m. on this day, I do the same thing with my own self. If I said I would
Yeah.
commit to that time and give myself that time, it's a block in my calendar. And you better believe it, I do not just ignore it, because it's the promise that I made to myself to invest in my health. And if you can keep a calendar with everyone else, you should be able to keep a block for yourself doing the things that you said you would. And to me, that's where, like, a lot of us, like, we have to commit. We have to commit that we also matter, that we also need to invest in the things that will support everything else that you do.
Absolutely. This is great. And thank you so much. And I really appreciate again your time, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. And for anyone that would like to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of education. A lot of posts that I do is really helping event professionals, small business owners to move their teams from like the surface level AI adoption into more of the strategy of what that looks like, and very practical, very role-based lessons that I share in a lot of my talks, a lot of my workflows, a lot of the live streams that I do, all of that, because I really do care about how we do things, but also wanting to give the tools and the strategies to do it right. And if I'm not speaking at an event, most likely I am behind the scenes doing an event. So make sure you check out Events Demystified podcast as well. We are actually starting the CEO edition season in January. So that will be an interesting season where it's all about the conversation with the human behind the brand. And it goes back to, what we talked about, that level of humanity that we bring to our businesses and to our events.
I'm sure there's a lot coming for you. You said your first event is on 2nd of Jan, right?
Yes.
So you have a busy year ahead. I can make out.
I
And
do it at the same time. I was thinking this morning, like, I really need to take a few days over the holidays to just unwind
right.
before I jump straight back into it. This year has been merciless in many, many ways. and
Right. Sure.
and it felt easy at times, and it felt really hard at times. And I talk a little bit about that in my last episode of my podcast, of all the things that I did and all the things that I almost did not. Because it is a journey. And if you've been in our industry for a minute, you know that it has not been an easy year from so many reasons.
Sure.
So I hope, if you're listening to this, I really hope that your 2026 will pan out to be a little different. And I hope that in the meantime, you have a wonderful holiday season, whichever way you celebrate. And we'll see you in 2026, hopefully refreshed and ready to take on whatever 2026 might bring.
And I wish you all the best, and all the great things that are supposed to happen should happen.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for this time.
We have a fantastic lineup over the next couple of episodes featuring great conversations on engaging your booth visitors and maximizing your ROI from your trade show investments. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you do not miss a single episode. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being with us today on the Trade Show Podcast, the podcast of record for the trade show and events industry. Here we talk to movers and shakers of the $50 billion trade show industry and identify ideas, challenges, tactics, and strategies to leverage the first-party intent inherent in the trade show business. We hope this conversation helped inform and motivate as we all navigate a rapidly changing business environment. For us, these are enlightening conversations enriched with knowledge and expertise. We encourage you to go out and implement some of the ideas we discussed today. We hope to have you with us again in the next exciting episode of the Trade Show Podcast. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast platform like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast from, and give us a rating while you are at it. This is a Bizcast original podcast and is produced for Pitchlink, the next generation visitor engagement platform where our mission is to make buying easy. Hosted by Shubhanjan Sarkar and produced by Rajiv Aditya. See you next time and have a wonderful day.